Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. So step right up. Today we're going to be revealing what's probably the greatest disappearing act since Houdini escaped a milk carton. That's right, we're talking about China's population. Officially, 1.4 billion strong. Unofficially, there's probably more life at a Blockbuster video reunion. So you ask, how do you lose hundreds of millions of people without anyone noticing? It's actually quite easy. You build fake cities, you fake your statistics, and a real demographic disaster. Now, this isn't a funny mistake. It's actually one of the most important lies of the 21st century. China's supposed massive population, it's their shield. It protects their economy. It props up what is a $1 trillion real estate fantasy. It maintains their entire status as a world superpower. And it hides a crumbling society struggling under the weight of the past 40 years. When you build an entire empire based on illusions, I guess you can't afford for anyone to look too closely. So how did we get here? So let's think back. Let's rewind back to 1979. It's back when bell-bottom jeans were absolutely in. Disco ruled the airwaves, and China decided, you know what? I think we got too many people. Enter the one-child policy. There was a nationwide campaign of forced sterilizations, heavy fines, and a cultural shift that really said, one is enough, two is a crime. For the subsequent 36 years, the government trained an entire generation, actually probably two generations, to think big families were selfish, expensive, and frankly outdated. The result? One of the sharpest fertility collapses in human history. China went from making baby boomers post-war to building bingo halls faster than you can say one-child policy. If you take a look at this graph here and zero in on the red of China, you can see that they were at 6 back in 1970. I mean, 6 children for every woman. And it declined rather drastically, you see, starting in 1980 after the one-child policy, and continued to go down. Remember, it takes 2.1 births per woman just for a society to level off and stay stable with the current population. In 2025, they're down to 1.1 and very much trending towards 1 within the next year or two. Now, if you compare that to India, in the blue here, also starting out at a very, very similar area, right about 6, just 0.3 of a baby less. They were having a steady general decline like a normal country. China. You had one job, China. One job. So I'm guessing by now, probably 90-some+% of you have heard of these large ghost cities in China, be it by 60 Minutes or some other news medium. Field of Dreams, the film, has a famous line that says, "If you build it, they will come." That does not apply to China. When China builds it, then nobody shows up, except maybe a stray cat named Mr. Whiskers. Over 600 of these cities, ghost cities, were built between the years 2000 and 2020. Why? Because in China's economic model, building actually counts as GDP growth, even if nobody lives there. Imagine building an entire Manhattan, parks, subways, malls, and then absolutely nobody moves in. Not even the pigeons. Welcome to Kangbashi. That happens to be the first city on this graph, which was a city designed to hold 1 million people. At its peak, it hit about 30,000, so less than 5%, and most of those were workers. Pretty consistent across the board with these cities. Chang Dusheng, apologize for my Mandarin, even actually built a fake Eiffel Tower because, if they're going to have no residents, you might as well give them a fake Paris to ignore. Many of these cities were sold on paper to investors, but occupied units, 5 to 10% at best. People actually that live there, less than 2% in most cases. So, go cities. Buy them now. Buy them later. Just buy them never. Okay, to talk about this demographic implosion, you bring up the thought of pyramid schemes, and not the way that you're thinking. When most people hear pyramid scheme, they think Ponzi scheme. Maybe shadow crypto coins. Maybe your weird cousin who tried to sell you magic vitamins. But China's pyramid scheme, it is so much worse. In a healthy society, the population pyramid, or the age pyramid, actually, it looks like a pyramid. And if you look at the blue in the chart here, you can see what I mean. You can see that big sturdy base of young people at the bottom, tapering up nicely to a pointy tip of old folks at the top. Then you gander over to China's age pyramid, and you imagine a middle-aged dad bod, wide in the middle, sagging everywhere, one bad sneeze from collapsing on itself. So you think about in these numbers here, if you dig a little bit deeper, back in 1990, so just 35 years ago, the median age in China was 24. 2020, median age is 38. 2050 projection, 48 plus for the median. So, congrats, China. You speed ran demographic collapse in record time. China's future workforce, one slightly arthritic, fragile retiree trying to fix an escalator in an abandoned mall. Now, something that is near and dear to all of us as we all just lived through the horrific time of the pandemic, the COVID pandemic. So China, and I'm trying to say this without laughing here, officially reported to the World Health Organization about 5,400 deaths between 2020 and 23. Remember Wuhan? Like in day 10. So that's what they reported for their official number. For a country of 1.4 billion, that is basically a rounding area. In comparison, the United States reported 1.1 million, and we were not at the epicenter of the crisis, and have a considerably better healthcare system. So 5,400. Crematoriums running 24/7 in late 2022 and early 2023 in China. There was mass construction of temporary funeral homes. Satellite nightlight imagery over funeral centers tripled normal brightness during death surges. Urn manufacturers were overwhelmed by government contractors because nothing says we've got this under control like ordering 2 million extra urns. So, a key rule to live by in life, is this. So listen up, or at least I found it to be. When the smoke from your crematoriums is visible from orbit, but your government claims it's just barbecue season, maybe, just perhaps, somebody's fibbing. Okay, math nerds, it's your turn. Grab your calculators. Let's bridge China's fake 1.4 billion to its grim reality. So China's claimed citizens, 1.4 billion. Now, we absolutely know by audits that ghost citizen registrations were absurdly high, as much as 350 million non-existent people. Fake IDs, dead people, many of which were for business concerns in the way that China's business market works and the realities of real estate that is not subject to this discussion, but forced, over 300 million fake people. There was birth rate manipulation and continues to be so, right? These are things like fake school rosters by school districts that get compensated based on the number of kids they have. Inflated censuses. It seems like it would be a little bit odd to somebody who thinks it through that when the government claims a certain birth rate, that 6 years later, only about 40% of those births turn into first graders. COVID hidden deaths. This one is it's a rather large range, but for the purposes of this, we're talking 50 million to 150 million. So we'll take a fairly centrist view of COVID deaths. The fertility collapse, about 100 million. Migration outflows, right? Students, dissidents, immigrants. That's a one-way street. People aren't going to China. So, poof, they're gone. Like a magician with a chainsaw instead of magic wand. China's internal economy is sized for 1.4 billion people. The reality is maybe it's half that. Result, when you have those two discrepancies, ghost towns, bankrupt pension plans, dead cities with luxury malls hosting tumbleweeds. The stark reality is when you have this planned reduction in population followed by a surge of population reduction, there has to be some level of disposition of the inhabitants that used to be. If you want to track a hidden collapse, you follow the smoke, and in this case, the ashes. Funeral home licenses issued between 2019 and 2023 increased by as much as 600% in major cities. New crematorium construction projects quadrupled nationwide. Shanghai alone reported double the cremation orders during the peak COVID months of 2023 compared to all of 2019 combined. Sea burial permits exploded by 5,000% in key coastal cities. In Xinjiang alone, Back in 2018, there was a fairly small 200 sea burials. Fast forward 5 years to 2023, 11,200. And to say that even just that one statistic alone compared to the 5,400 claimed loss in COVID it's absolutely striking in that one city alone, and we're just talking about sea burials. When you look at though we don't have any data, or I didn't have any data from 2015 to 2017 with those sea burials, you can see fairly flat 2018 to 2019. 2020, when COVID became a thing, it got a fourfold increase, and then just skyrocketed from there. In the crematorium projects, and these are massive facilities. There were 15 new projects between 2015 and 2018. Between 2019 and 22, more than 60. When you don't want to report how many people died, just drop the urn overboard, right? Out of sight, out of mind. Sea burials mean there's no graveyards. That means it's easier to handle large death surges without raising suspicion. It's cheaper, it's faster, and for the purpose of this discussion, it's much harder to audit. The spike in cremations and burials perfectly matches the disappearance of 50 to 150 million people. Things that you can't say are necessarily proof, but are definitely correlated: what you eat, right? We all consume food. We season our food. It's a very low-cost item that can make our lives a little bit more enjoyable. Salt, right? Salt imports and food consumption dropped during the same periods. Japan exports dropped by 50% over that period. It's definitely correlated, though you can't say it's causation. So the Chinese population collapse isn't a future risk. It's a catastrophe that already happened. And the ashes are all that is left to prove it. And as we look to the future, if we compare to similar population type countries, in lane 1, we have India, powered by 3 generations of baby showers. And in lane 2, you've got China, trying to field a team with retirees and missing citizens. Today, India's median age is 28 years old. China's is 38 and is moving to 48 very quickly. India's fertility rate, about 2.1 births per woman. As we said earlier, that's stable. China's fertility rate crashing towards 1. And when we look at the graph up here to the top right, you can see how they both started off at the same. With the China's official number and India's reported number back in 2025 of 1.4. But as we move to 2035, we would expect it to really start to diverge, even with their official numbers. China is expecting it to go down. The realities, however, are much grimmer, right? With the China adjusted by 2050, perhaps being around that 600 million number. So the economic implications of this are absolutely catastrophic for China. China's labor force shrinks by 300 million by 2050, if we assume it's the already adjusted number. Pension funds will collapse under the weight of retirees. Real estate values will plummet as young buyers simply vanish because they don't exist. The military recruitment pools will be dried up. Innovation slows as the workforce ages and people continue to leave. The talent continues to leave. Sometimes empires fall with a bang. Sometimes they just quietly stop answering the phone. The shrinking of the consumer market is inevitable. We're going to continue seeing the housing market collapse. The brain drain has been accelerating and will continue to do so. Political instability. Today on the news, you can see the pressure of the youth in the country pushing back to their leadership. A society without young people is a society without hope. It's without growth. Essentially, that's a society without a tomorrow. A bit more of a somber note. China dreamed of building the future. Cities of glass, steel, neon lights stretching to the heavens. But they forgot the one thing that every empire needs to survive. And it's its people. Rather than face its own reality, they buried it under false numbers, censored deaths, ghost cities, and ghost citizens. Because to admit the truth, to admit a shrinking, dying nation, would mean risking it all. Their economy, their status, and as we see what seems to be most important to those in leadership, their power. And so the lie continues to grow bigger. The charts grow rosier, and the skyscrapers, they grow emptier. In the end, it wasn't foreign armies or economic collapse or even pandemics that undid China's dream. It was something far simpler. Demographics, mathematics, and time. China is the ghost superpower. So, on a lighter note, if you enjoyed what you learned today and like this type of content, please like the video. And if you're feeling a little bit extra saucy, please hit that subscription button. Thank you all. Until later, take care. Bye-bye.